Abbott is a uber nerd when it comes to stats. He knows and can deep dive into everything. When we ask these 17 questions, we'll have time for the next one, where if you guys have questions, let's kind of take a deep dive. While we have Matt here, you guys can break down stuff. So if we ask, if we have to ask a question about volunteers, okay, well, that's nationally. We can break it down to, all right, well, just in Colorado, it's up, but in Virginia, it's down. We can get into some nitty gritty stuff, which will, hopefully help you guys with your races. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Hi, my name is Matt. I live in Issaquah, Washington, just outside of Tiger Mountain. Ethan Newberry's Tiger Claw race takes place here, just in case you don't know the area, about 20 minutes outside of Seattle. I'm also a mountain runner, though I don't have as much time to race as I'd like. I'm a single parent, so my time requirements are kind of weird. But it's really great to be here with you all. Like I said, I'm director of data at Ultrasound, so do a variety of things. Very familiar with our database, do analytics, also work on the web application. I might not be able to answer all the questions about volunteers by state at this point immediately, but what I do want to offer to all of you is that if you have follow-up questions, my email address is at the end of my slides, and I'm happy to work one-on-one with you to help answer some of the questions that I can't answer today, if that works.
Awesome. Okay, so before we get into your presentation, Matt, I thought if each of you, or at least you guys here with us in person, I'm curious your opinions on kind of where you feel like trail running is right now in comparison to like where we were this time last year. Do you feel like it is still growing at, a crazy pace? Do you feel like we're in a good spot? Any like hot takes right off the bat?
I think that it is growing. I see quite a bit of changes over the years that I have been with trail running. I have seen better food selection. There are so many people that have a gluten issue, and I know I, for one, had that problem for many years. But as things have changed so much now, it makes it better. Even the food that you get in small packages where you didn't have that before. I think that runners are getting more educated towards what needs to be done now opposed to last year. More people are taking camera bags instead of water bottles in their hands. And yeah, those are the strengths that I see in trail running. But maybe you can say the weaknesses.
Weaknesses, oh boy. That's a tough one. Well, I know the answer to the question, that's the only problem. I know where it is.
Yeah.
But for me, regionally, I feel like we're getting to an oversaturation point, which not so much hurts the numbers of runners, it does, but not nearly as much as it hurts volunteers. The volunteers that, that always step up are still the ones that step up. There's never new ones, or if there are, they're getting spread pretty thin because there's a race every weekend or every 2 days in a weekend. So I think oversaturation would be my overall on the year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I feel like too, runners, a lot of runners are running races all the time now, and so there's probably some burnout on that end as well.
Yep.
Matt, do you want to pull up your presentation and kick things off on your end?
I think we start with the game and then we go through each one.
Okay.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Take it away, Tom.
All right. Oh shit. All right. Here we go. All right, registration's up, down, or flat compared to this point last year. Need everybody to go on your phone, answer. You have 26 seconds. Yeah. Matt, you want to talk about this?
Sure. I wish I could see what was going on your side there, but anyway, let's see. So here's a chart of registration volume year on year from the Ultra Sign Up platform. And what we see here is that participation in US trail races grew steadily after COVID-19 pandemic, where we had like a peak going into 2019. COVID kind of dropped things off significantly, but we've been up 144% over the past 5 years. Now, registration for 25 races isn't done yet, but as others have pointed out across the industry, growth this year a little bit soft in the first half of the year. Now we're up about 2% overall down, which is flat in the sense that it's not statistically significant and the year hasn't closed yet. This does mask growth in individual categories though. For example, where timed events as a category are up 4% over 2024.
Right. Do you have a question?
Hey, Matt, this is Mary from Sparker Sports. This is super interesting. I'm curious to know, based on the registration trends that you're seeing, it's flat right now. How do you expect that to change in Q4, understanding that the bulk of the registration year is between like October and November? That tends to be the busiest time.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like I said before, the first half of the year was a little bit soft, especially within the first quarter. March in particular was a little bit down compared to other months, but that trend did start to reverse in Q3, where August, for example, we had a boost in registration volume 2025 over 2024. I haven't fully assessed September yet, so I'm curious to see where it goes in Q4, but I do expect that we'll reach parity with last year by the end of the year and perhaps slightly over. So in the probably 350K ballpark range.
Matt, it sounded like you were trying to show us a graph, but we are not able to see anything.
What do you see?
We see the Kahoot.
Oh no. Okay. So I have my screen share on too. There's a multiple screen share setting in Zoom, but if that's not working, no, is that not working?
Nope. What do we got? Share got it. Which one? Exit out of this.
Should be black and white graph.
I'm trying to get rid of this thing. It's blocking what I need.
Guys, there was a little thing on the Kahoot, a little blue button that says show media. I wonder if that's it.
Yeah, it's on this computer, so it's not on his.
How do I close this thing out?
I don't know. It's a MacBook.
Well, it's behind that, so I don't know how to fix it.
What do you want? This?
No, it's right there.
This? Oh, Matt had it. There we go.
Oh, did it work? I hear cheers. That sounds good. Do we see a graph now?
Some of it. Boom. All right, there you go, Matt.
Okay, now are we engaging visually with the data I thought we were engaging with?
Yep, we got it.
Excellent. Sick.
Perfect. Now, yeah, but now how do I get the? No, how do I get the Kahoot back up?
I don't know. Remember, I got version 2 with the questions just in case. I was afraid that this would happen.
Can we just read out the questions?
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, the choices. Do you see the choices on your phone?
Not the questions.
Not the answer.
No, it's on this.
Okay. I didn't know if we could just read out the question. You know.
I've got a version of my slides with all the questions and answers in case we need to flip for technical reasons.
Okay, yeah, we might need to do that, Matt.
Okay, no problem. Let me flip.
Terry,
Got it.
he's gonna pull up.
I'll look it up.
He has a slide deck that has the questions and answers on it. So he's
Oh,
gonna
really?
just pull that up. So you could just share his screen again.
Okay.
Kind of the,
So
Yeah, let me get that.
yeah, but I
yeah,
there we go. Okay.
there we go.
Do you see the question now?
This is a conference about technological solutions. Yeah, we got it, Matt. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just do this then. I hope this version has all the things that I mean to have in it. I think it does, but if it doesn't, we'll work through it. Okay. Does anybody have remaining questions about this slide here, or do we want to move on?
So just to be clear, right now, 2025 is just below what 2024 is now. If you haven't factored in September 1. Right.
Right, so he's just asking to confirm that 2025, you said is 2% down over 2024, but Q4.
Yeah, compared to this same point in time last year. So year to date, 2024 versus 2025.
These are just all just send up numbers? Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, next slide.
Okay, question number 2. Tom, do you want to read off the questions or you want me to? You're there, so it might be more fun.
All right. Are events up, down, or flat compared to this point last year? So events, not registration, but our events. I know. Good answer, Matt.
All right.
All right, what do we think? Up? Same? It's pretty much the same, but actually it's a slightly different picture than registration because instead of being down 2%, events are actually up 2%. But again, it's a non-significant difference. I think in the numbers that we have with the volume that we have, something like 5 to 8% would be in the significant range and 2% is more or less flat. But that doesn't mean people aren't creating new events. And remember that on Ultra Signup, there's ingress and egress of events year to year. So it's not necessarily the same exact events. All right.
Do we have like a number of new events in 2025?
Good question. Not off the top of my head, but I can get back to you with that. Okay. So now we have a bunch of questions about when. So that was sort of the high level, just here's where we're at this year. But we have a bunch of questions about when things happen. So question 3. Take it away, Tom.
What was the biggest registration day of the year?
That's pretty obvious. We all know it. New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, if you consider the beginning. And I think, honestly, this is truly fascinating to me. I do believe it has mostly to do with just how many events open their registration on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. But I just love this plot. Here's just a daily volume chart of 2024. And just look at New Year's. That spike is just crazy. It's so crazy, it looks like an anomaly, but it's not because it's the same way every single year. And I just love that. But personally, as a data person, I think data is beautiful. So I love representing it this way because it just allows you to see, here's what the years look like. You know, here's the opening of Cocodona 250 this year, which is another big spike. I don't know all the spikes offhand here, but you know, going into December, we'd see another spike for Broken Arrow coming up. But anyway, just think this is really cool because as we'll see a little bit later, this day here actually ends up filling in registration volume for events kind of single-handedly in a big way. It's like 8% of all registrations take place on New Year's Day, but they're for events throughout the year, not just in the winter or the spring.
Matt, are there any large lotteries that start on New Year's Day that would make that jump so much higher?
The answer is almost certainly yes, but I don't remember offhand which they are. I know that one of the lottery processing that happens in mid-January is for the Superior Race Series in Minnesota. So that's a really big event that takes place, and that's why the processing ends up happening here. I think they start on New Year's. I could be wrong though.
Are people who don't get into lotteries included in those registrations, or just people who get in?
Are they counted here? No, they're not.
Any other questions on this? It's just registrations and people who paid. Matt?
Yeah, so it's things that were processed.
So if the lottery's January 1st, or if they sign up to be in the lottery.
Matt, did you hear that question?
No, sorry, the questions are a little faint for me.
Is it if they sign up for the lottery that day, or is it when the lottery is selected?
It's when they sign up for it. If it's if they're picked, it backdates it to when they registered. So I could be wrong about this line here. I have to go back and look at them at some point.
All right, let's go. Next one.
And then this just shows here's the monthly volume as it goes in. So we see again, January is a very large month for registrations, as is May. All right, question 4.
What do we think?
So how? So I think it's A or B.
A or C is what people are responding.
Okay. The answer is C. It's 91 days out. So people typically register for 50K about 3 months ahead of time. So then for 100 miler, how far out do you think people register for 100 miles? We think it's D. So this one's 175 days out. So it's about half a year in advance. So a little bit different time scale than a 50K. I have a couple fun stats about 100 milers before I show the data slide. So over in 2025 so far, over 11,000 people have raced a 100 miler. Now, interestingly, that adds up to about 1 million miles just in the 100 miler category alone. Now, I thought it was fascinating that if you count the number of people who have raced a 50K this year, it's about 37,000. And that's about 1.1 million miles run this year just in the 50K category. That's pretty interesting. Our runners have run about the same cumulative amount of miles across 50K and 100-mile distance, but it's a completely different population of people in terms of size. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. For 100 milers, 64% of runners traveled out of their home state for that race versus 44% for 50K. And then here's a breakdown just of the median lead time from registration to race day by these distance categories. Now, these are sort of broad categories. These are what's in the ultra sign up search. So things like 50K are included in 28 to 40 miles. 100 milers are in 91 to 110 miles. But this just helps you understand how far out runners are thinking about these things, where the median is really the center of that distribution. So for the 50K category there, 92 days, that means 50% of runners register later or further out than 92 days from the event, so over 3 months out. And then the other 50% register within 92 days of the event, so 3 months or less. But it is
changing. Are these numbers getting smaller? Are people procrastinating more, or are they planning ahead? are these numbers moving from year to year, or is this pretty much stationary?
So this is actually sort of stationary. This year, the like across all distances, the median lead time is about 2 days longer than it was than last year. So they're registering slightly further out, but that overall doesn't change a whole lot year to year. Where you would see a big change year to year is if there was a sudden shift in the mix of races with like race volume. So say, for example, all of a sudden 50% of the population was registering for races that were greater than 110 miles. You might see that median shift, but a lot of it just has to do with the distribution of registrations over these distance categories.
Rob had a question. Oh. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, one question I have now is this initial registration. The reason why I asked that because some races you sign up for 100K and then you get hurt or you went down to 50K. Does that factor in, or is it based on initial registration? How is that, or is that even incorporated into the number?
Matt, is it based on initial registration, like if they change distance at a later date? Or is it just what they initially sign up for?
That's a good question. So anything that's like removed from our registration ledger is excluded from this. So if somebody were to sign up for 50K, remove that and shift it to 100K, they would only be counted in the 100K bucket.
My question is actually about slide 2 back. With the 8% that they said is registered on day 1, does he have stats of what percentage of that 8% is made up of people that register for races that are after, like this halfway point, like after June and beyond? So of the 8%, how many of those people that are registering on day 1 are registering for races after June? Or something like that.
Yeah, that may be a hard stat to pull. Matt, his question is, so all these people that sign up on January 1st, how many of those people register for a race after June? Is that the set date?
Percentage of the breakdown is like,
Do they go back in?
that are racing January through June versus the percentage that 8% that are racing July through December.
Yeah, that may be a
Or
tough.
some breakdown.
Yeah, that may be a tough stat for him to pull out.
There's 8% of people, that's great, but if I'm doing a race in October, does that really impact me, like being out there? I guess what I'm trying to say is, do I need to be out there on January 1 if I'm not doing a race until November?
I think that's up to you taking this data right now and saying, I need to be open on January 1st. I think that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing right up here, is to give you guys this data to be like, okay, am I missing a huge opportunity? I think that's I think I would take this and be like, all right, I need to be open on January 1st.
Depending too on the distance of your event.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think that's a fascinating question. If I understand it right, the question is basically, are people signing up on Jan 1 for things in July? Are they signing up for things in March? Are they signing up for things in October? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I don't have direct answer for that, but I love the question, so I want to figure it out and I'll get back to you on that. Does that work? Sweet.
We have one more question.
Sorry, I'm going to be that kid. Matt, out of curiosity, how would you say this registration trend aligns with early bird pricing? So people that are doing 100 entries at premium pricing.
Did you hear that, Matt?
Yeah. I'm writing this one down too, because I don't know the answer to that. It's sort of specific, but I love this question too, because I'm really curious about how volume, immediacy, and trends are conditionally with respect to price changes. So not just early bird, but any sort of price increase that we have too, because typically what you see is a spike in volume just ahead of a price increase because people are aware of when that is. And that might have something to do with the alerts feature that we have in the site. But I love that question. It's super interesting.
Matt, I have a question. On your
Yeah.
watch list, is there a conversion rate? How many people sign up for the watch list and then actually go back in?
So I can tell you that on a event by event basis, because I have a script that'll calculate it. So if you want to know, just reach out to me and I can tell you.
Okay.
But I don't have it like pulled up in front of me right now.
I didn't know if there was like a 50% average or something like that overall.
No, I don't remember what it is offhand. I ran it for some individual account recently, and I don't remember what it was, but it's something that can be known.
We have one more question.
These numbers are based on ultra sign up. What is ultra sign up's share in the registration platform?
Did you hear that, Matt?
I did. That's a really good question. At this point in time, I don't know the exact answer. When I first joined Ultra Sign Up about 3 years ago, we had a slide deck that quoted 78% of trail and ultra races in the United States, but I don't know if that number has changed or if it's the same or what. I also didn't generate that number, so I don't know the data behind it necessarily. But that's a good question. So I think like definitely worth, keeping in back of mind here is that anything that I share here is pulled from Ultra Signups database. So it's a reflection of our lens of the industry.
All right, Matt, I think you can go to the next slide.
Okay, so now we can think about distributions of time a little bit. So what percentage of runners register kind of last minute for 50K? I know 30 days or less isn't necessarily last minute. It's just one definition of it. But how many do you think are planning their 50K within the same month that it happens? I hear some B's and maybe some C's. All right, that sounds about right. So it is B. So about 19% of runners registered for 50K within 30 days. And the full distribution kind of looks like this. So this is a histogram where each bar represents a slice of days, and then registration count is on the y-axis there. The shaded part there shows the bars within 30 days. The median's represented there in green at 91 days, and then the tail of the distribution. So everyone to the right of that green vertical line is registering more than 3 months out for the event. And then to the left of that is less than 3 months out. So that's kind of what overall across all the 50K data points we have this year, what that tail looks like.
Do you know if that number is increasing or decreasing year to year on the last minute people? I mean, for race directors, it's very difficult to, it's hard to know what our last minute runners are going to be. So if we're ordering swag, we're ordering food, water, that 19% is a great number to know if we need to increase everything by 19%. But if that number is going up or down yearly, we kind of need to make adjustments.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's sort of a slice of comparing these two distributions over time, which I haven't done yet, but I think practically speaking, you would want to know for that because that's your incidental stuff that you're trying to shift over if you need to, if you have a giant surge of people, right? So let me note that down as well.
Rob?
Kind of thinking about what was asked earlier. So you can't register for something that's not on the platform. So are you also tracking how far in advance are 50K going live on the platform? So we know, let's see stuff going out for a year, but there's a lot of 50Ks that aren't posted that far in advance. So
Yeah.
So do you also track how far in advance, based on distance, these events are being posted on the time?
That's a great question. How far out are events like by distance being put up and available for registration? So like your graph here shows some people registered over a year in advance for a 50K. Do you know offhand like the average or median amount of time that different distances are going up for registration?
That's a really good question. I didn't do that here, but that's an obvious follow-up to what I have here. And then I think, because then you'd want to know, like, how well is it calibrated, right? Like, are you opening events for registration on average or median with respect to people's tendencies, right? I think that's kind of where you'd want to go with it, right? Because I think like what I could do or help do is provide recommendations for how far out to open things by different distances. There might be regional variation or something which we could understand too, but I'd be happy to help with that.
Yeah, it'd be really helpful to know. You're good to go ahead.
Okay. Now, I did basically the same thing for 100 miler, or wait, no, I don't have the shading in here. Sorry. But here's the same representation for 100 miler with the median. Now, what I think is really interesting about this is just how spread out it is compared to the 50K, which is like kind of front loaded as far as distributions go. Like this is the log normal distribution. This is fairly uniform. I would suspect this actually has a lot to do with just variation in when 100 milers open. So I'm especially interested about the last question with respect to this data set too. Just to preview where I want to go with it next. Okay. Okay. So.
We have one question, Matt, sorry.
Oh, yes.
My question was, do sold out events really change the data on these, or is there not enough to really change that data?
Sure it does.
Do sold out events change the data in any capacity?
Not sure. Great question.
Yeah. Yes.
We're guessing, yes.
Yes.
What's that?
Next question.
All right. What percent of runners register less than 30 days out from a 10K? Now, thinking compared to 50K, my guess is this one might be sort of obvious, but what do we think? I think it's B, 54%. All right, you're pretty close. It's 44%. And then here's what that distribution looks like. So it's interesting because you compare the 100 miler to the 50K to the 10K, and it's like things get progressively front loaded as the distance of the event decreases. And so here you've got about half your people registering pretty close to the event, and the other half is over here. But that makes sense to me. Like if I'm turkey trot, sorry, is usually a 5K, not a 10K. But if I'm signing up for a turkey trot, I'm not thinking about it half a year in advance necessarily.
Just by
Doing
showing
it kind of.
how many people here have ultra and sub ultra races? If you're a racer, both. Okay, so big, like large group.
All right, moving on. So what's the biggest month of the year in terms of participation?
How many events are in a month?
Matt, does that mean how many events are taking place in that month?
Ooh, I'm thinking in terms of runners. So how many people on feet? But they are correlated.
Lisa, let's go. We need to know your answer.
Guesses are B or D?
B or D? All right, you're pretty close. It's June. June is pretty close to May, though. All right. You get another guess. What's the second biggest month? D. It's October, yeah. So I think that's really interesting, right? Because you've got. Okay, so here, this is the year to date. It doesn't show October. I know I just talked about October. This is just what 2025 looks like so far. It's actually May and June were really, really close, but June just barely beat out May. September was also a big month. Now, I think this is really interesting too. So here kind of puts together the registration volume. So when you're signing up compared to the when people are running these things. So here we see January, where in the darker gray, we see oriented around the date of the event. There are races in January, but for the most part, people are signing up for races. They're not racing in January, where that shifts throughout the year, right? So people are signing up for lots of things in the spring and winter months, but they're racing further out in the year. They're racing in May and June or September. We can look at a full year here so that we see October. So here's looking at the full year of 2024. Looks pretty similar overall, though we saw May was a little bit bigger this year. But here we see that second peak. We see October. Now, I think this is really cool because I look at this and I tell myself, well, there's kind of two opportunities for a big A race in the year, right? Where if you have decent amount of time training in between your event in June and October, You can feel pretty fresh and fit for both of those. Personally, I'd probably choose October because I like running in colder months. But anyway, I think this is pretty cool. Any questions?
Do you have a distribution of states that these races are?
Did you hear that, Matt?
Definitely not.
Uh, the distribution of states for all of these.
We'll get to where stuff in a little bit. Don't worry about it.
Matt, do you have a distribution by distance? I'm thinking most of the 100-milers are probably parked in June.
I think that's probably accurate. Not in, I don't have that in back pocket. Let me take down that note. Sorry, I'm saying no to a lot of the questions. Making these figures takes some time, so I didn't make billions of them, unfortunately. But let me see. So distribution of 100-milers.
I'd like to see a temperature graph. Why is everybody scared of July and August?
Oh, we're gonna see one of those in a minute. Don't worry, I got that too. All right, let's keep going because I got more stuff. Okay, so what's the biggest weekend of 2025 in terms of events? Sorry, this one is displayed horribly. That's my fault. So is it October 4th, April 26th, September 20th, or June 7th? We think it's June 7th. That would make a lot of sense since I just showed a thing showing that June was the biggest month, wouldn't it? But actually, you're wrong. It's September 20th. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, it only beats out October 18th by one event. It's like 59 versus 58 events, those respective weekends. But here's the temperature chart that you're just talking about, Tom. So this is a little complicated. So let me take a second to walk through it. Here's a full representation of the calendar year by year, where I kind of blocked out Monday through Thursday because events don't really happen there, where we can focus on the weekend instead. Now, each of these is a day, and then brighter colors mean more events on that day. Here are years, so representations from 2020 up through 2025. So first thing you should see is that it's brighter in 2025 than 2020 because 2020 was kind of a dark year, right? There wasn't as much racing volume happening. So the calendar was a little bit more opaque. Now, 2025, what we can see is gradual brightening of the graph as we progress through the weeks of the year to June. And then we see these bright spots in September and October, picking out those highest density weekends. And you can see some change over time. So for example, that weekend in September, if you go down the chart, it's a little bit dimmer and it's picked up speed a little bit over time. Questions kind of about this big thing. I have a couple of regional charts that I'll show in a minute too, just to show how the calendar changes depending on where the events are, just to preview that in case anyone's wondering about it.
Looks like we're good to go ahead.
All right, I'm hearing crickets. That's a great sign. So here's what the New England calendar looks like. Now, I'm from Massachusetts originally, so this makes a lot of sense to me because in these months over here in the winter, there is a lot of snow in the mountains, and I might not necessarily be trail running in those months. But as the weather warms up, the snow melts, we do have more races happening, right? So that makes total sense to me. But why I put together representations like this too is that I could generate these on an account basis, on a state basis, and you could help understand for yourself, what is the density of stuff week by week if you're trying to plan an event for that date, right? It might help you in your planning to understand where are gaps in the calendar that I could fill in, back to Tom's point about saturation. So here's New England versus the Mountain West states. So these are like Colorado, Utah, and whatnot, where it's a little bit more uniform across the year. And I think that makes sense, right? And if I'm in Washington State, depending on where I am, there's less seasonal snow. So I can be, running things throughout the year. Whereas if I'm in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, it might be a little bit more difficult for me. Thoughts? Or shall we move on?
Move on.
All right, we're moving on. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some what things. So what's the most popular race distance on ultrasign up in terms of registrations? All right, we think it's 50K. I think that makes sense. But first, well, it is. But first, this rendered terribly. I'm sorry about that. Let me see if, anyway. What you'll see though is that on Ultra Sign Up, because I didn't make this pie small enough, interestingly, across all of our registrations, sub-ultras win out with about 55% of all registrations are for races that are less, marathon distance or less. Ultras are a large share of it. It's about 36% of the data, and then timed events are about 10%. But the 50K, in terms of just the distance that they select for the race at the time of registration, is the most popular distance on Ultra Sign Up, accounting for about 15% of races. That category has grown. It's up from 13% in 2023. And we see that half marathons, second most popular distance, 25K. And then actually, I thought this was interesting. 100 milers by registration share are bigger than as a category than 50 milers. That's like, it's sort of counterintuitive to my brain to think of that, but in my brain too, I have 100 miler as a goal, but I don't necessarily have 50 miler since I've done that distance before. So I can kind of wrap my head around it. Something that doesn't show up here is that as a category, 200 milers continue to grow, where 2025 participation is up 153% over 2024, where 100 miler category is a little bit flat, but people are stoked about 200 plus.
So Matt, I have a question. Is this based on the price that people are paying or the number of registrations? And also, it might depend on limits. Like there's a lot of 100 miles or 200, longer races that have more of a limit. So I'm wondering if that affects it at all. And plus the pricing, obviously for 100 miles, probably going to cost more than a 5K. So is the registration the price or the number of people?
That's a good question. So this is based on just count. So this is based on the number of registrations. But I have some stuff on pricing in a few minutes that we can talk about.
Last year we talked about the highest growth happening in the backyard category, and I'm curious where that fits in.
Yes. So in my head anyway, so I don't have backyard as like a distinct category of data, but I'm thinking of timed events. So the 24 hours, 12-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour kind of loop event things. And that category, like I shared at the beginning, is growing the fastest of the big categories. So if I break it down like this, ultra, timed event, sub-ultra, timed events are growing at a faster rate than either ultra or sub-ultra, which I think is pretty interesting.
Okay, I think we're good to move on.
Okay, so now we can think about where a little bit. I have less questions about this, but I have more fun stuff to look at. We'll see some stuff move, and I don't know, it might work, it might not. So question 12, what's the biggest destination in 2025 for racing in terms of the volume of registration? So what state are people registering for races in the most? Okay, we think it's California or Utah. I have a mixture of state codes and names in here. That's terrible. I shouldn't do that. Well, it's Utah. I actually didn't expect that coming out at first. I would have thought California or Colorado. And I don't have the question on screen, but if you were to guess, where are the bulk of participants coming from? Thinking about the same general states. Are they coming from Utah, California? We don't know. They're mostly coming from Colorado, 7.2%, followed by California, 5.8%, and then Washington at 4.5%. So I think that's interesting. We would expect then a lot of movement coming from Colorado to California. Here's just that breakdown. So destinations are Utah, Arizona, California, Oregon, and Washington by volume. And then, okay, this is going to be a little bit intense to look at, but what I did was I plotted flight paths, quote unquote, which are showing the top destinations across the map from origin to destination. And then we're going to see the chart animate by months so that we'll see across the year, how is it progressing to where people are racing? I hope the animation works, but we'll see. And it might start out in a weird part of the map. So and don't worry, I have these all broken down month by month too, so that we can see. But so cycle back to January in a second. And what we see is that as the year progresses, note the lines are moving more northward, which I think makes sense. So if we think back to the calendar chart we had before, where we saw New England had some gaps in the calendar in the beginning of the year because there might be snow and stuff. Well, as the year progresses, we see people traveling more northward for the races, which I just think is really cool. And like a little bit more concretely, so here's January. There we see that Colorado to Utah area destination, right? So that line, that path is really thick. Some other ones too, going from Arizona to California, it might be coming from East Coast or Midwest to California. But as you progress, note the kind of heaviness of the bands is moving up in terms of latitude. So you're seeing more, whoop, wrong way. And you get to June, you're seeing some more Oregon and Washington. In July, you're seeing influx of stuff going into New England. And then starts to come back down again as you go to the end of the year. Now, these are sort of like projections for year end, a little bit noisy at this point. But any questions?
What is the most popular distance in Utah?
Oh my gosh. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. I also have all my code behind here, so I could run these things, but I don't know how fast I can pull it up. Okay, I don't have distance in the thing that has travel, so I'll have to get back to you on that, but I'm really curious about that too.
One more question?
When, maybe going back a little bit, but it relates, when you said that most races were occurring in September, where are they occurring? Maybe top three states?
So, going back to where or when most races are happening, do you have any data on where those are happening in those months? Like June was the most popular month. Do you know where the most races happened in June?
Yes, off the top of my head, no, but yes, that can absolutely be known. I think you're thinking of like a heat map of locations for races by month, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good question. I can do that at some point.
All right, one more question.
What about the South? What are like the states more popular for races here in the South area?
Do you know off the top of your head in the southern region, because I know we touched on New England and the West, what the most popular destination is in the South for races?
Great question. Let me get back to you on that.
More of an ultrasound question. Now, if people are putting on races in the South, does ultrasound have something for the race directors where they can start marketing to the north so they can start pulling people in the what you have is the dark months, so December, January, February, if they have a race, and does ultrasound have a tool where they could market towards people that have winter?
That's a really cool question. I think the way, so the answer is yes, it's possible. So I think the way that you do it might not be directly possible within the UltraSignup platform right now. But I know one thing I can share is that I like working with our marketing team, there's some extent of ways that we can pull lists to help surface things in a personalized sense for people. So I think one thing that I would like to build into race director tooling in the future would be an ability to kind of target and advertise like this, because I think that's important, right? Where, the goal is to fill capacity for the event, right? Like you want to have people at your event to run the event so that you can do it again in the future, right? You want success. Part of that means being able to market to people in the right way to acquire those people. So I think the question is really interesting. I don't know if the tooling is there directly to do it yet, but it's something that I'd like to experiment with for sure.
I mean, now that we have this data, I feel like the advertising option on Ultra Sign Up, where you can go in and select like how many views you want to pay for, and then you can select by state where you want that advertising to go. So, I mean, for those of you putting on races in the South, you could now strategize, okay, maybe people in the North on the East Coast, for instance, might be more willing to travel down to Virginia or Tennessee in those cool, colder months and target advertising directly towards them.
I think that's cool. I'm always learning about new functionality on Ultra Sign Up that I didn't know existed. So,
I use it a lot.
sorry, my daughter has a question real quick. She has to go out to the bus in a second. So. I'm sorry. I have a middle schooler who needs to know what time she needs to go to the bus. Are there more questions about this?
What was the question, Matt?
Any other questions?
How many new races do you see in the last year that are new coming in?
How many events are net new?
Yes, events.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
And that question could be, are they new to Ultra Sign Up? So
Right.
Yeah.
we have a
that's good
calendar
question.
too, and that was one of the things we used to do, is what new events. And based on starting to compile data from 1996, we would see just, there was a smattering of new races, and then that curve has just gone skyrocketed. And the number of events, and then it kind of flattened out. But I think too, that question could be, you know, Amy has a race and she was on a different platform and now she's an Ultra Sign Up. Does that mean it's a new race? Not necessarily. It's new to Ultra Sign Up. So I think there's two questions there as to, is it a new race of the year or a new race on the platform?
Right. Yeah. Okay, Matt, I think we're good to move forward.
That's an important distinction, by the way, just new versus new to Ultra Sign Up. Sometimes I don't know unless there are past results that I can see. Okay, so running tight on time, so I kind of breeze through some of this. But now I have a few questions about pricing, so just how much money is being exchanged in various ways. So what's
Hold on,
the
we have one more question.
oh,
So, I understand you probably end up tracking runners based on gender. Do you do anything as far as tracking a person's ethnic background when they register?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last bit there.
You track certain things. Do you track ethnicity?
No, so we'll get to that in a second because I have some demographic notes, but by and large, race and ethnicity data would come from registration questions, and those only exist for a couple of events in our platform, so it's not really something I can comment on directly, unfortunately. But we'll touch on that in a second. Okay, so what do you think is the typical price of a 50K in 2025?
C is what we're getting.
Nailed it. Yeah, it's about $115. So what do you think it was in 2024?
Sounds like B.
It's C. It's actually really similar. So if we think about price inflation, which we know is a thing, might be between 5 and 7%. That's actually not unreasonable. So here's the full breakdown for 2025 by these distance categories. So this, let me walk through this too. So here's the same categories I've been using. Again, these sort of broad categories. The median, so the 50th percentile is represented by this green dot here. And then the shaded region is the interquartile range, so the 25th to the 27th, there's the 75th percentile. So this represents the majority of pricing for events by and large, excluding the absolute min and max. But here's our 50K category that we were just looking at there. So typically range from about $85 to $140, depending on where you are, what the event is, and whatnot. I think this general trend makes sense. So distance of the event, how much support you might need for it, the price increases. Same is generally true for timed events, though there's, this is a little bit of an outlier in that greater than 72 category. I think that's just because there's not nearly as many events as in these other categories. But then we can see just layered on what changed since last year. So here's that kind of inflationary effect that I was just talking about with the 50K category here. Anything that's less than 5%, I didn't actually include on here because I just don't think it's that important to focus on. But anyway, this shows just kind of where movement was. So generally speaking, kind of pricing tracks with the broader macroeconomic inflation trend that we see, which I think makes sense. And I guess like to kind of zoom out a little bit, if you see that like registration volume is flat, but prices are up a little bit, that means revenue is up slightly too. And if you think about that, it's kind of just an inflation adjustment, like the cost of doing business has increased. I think prices going up in accordance with that does make sense.
Hey Matt, can you read the grades like the either end of the spectrum? It's just hard to read those numbers. Would you mind reading them for each of the districts?
Oh yeah, so $45 at the less than 10 miles category, 80 for 10 to 27 miles, 115 for 28 to 40, which is up $5 or 4.5% since last year. 41 to 60 miles, $150, up $10 or about 7.1%.
She wants to know the minimum.
Oh, sorry. The gray numbers. I thought you said green. Sorry, I can't hear fully. In less than 10 miles, that's 30 to 60. 10 to 27 is 60 to 105. 28 to 40 is 85 to 140. 41 to 60 is 115 to 185. 61 to 90 is 145 to 225. 185 to 355. 223.50 to 650. And then moving down to the timed event category, less than 7 hours, we have $55 to $99, 85 to 145, 110 to 200, 120 to 292.50, and then 85 to 170.
Does that include the ultra sign-up fee, or is that the price that the race director sets?
It's the price that the race director sets. These are all the base pricing.
Matt, do you know off the top of your head the maybe 2 more expensive states and the 2 more economical states, or 3?
This is the pricing by states.
Yes.
Not off the top of my head, but putting it in my notes.
We're giving Matt a lot of work to do.
Yes.
I mean, this is good though, right? Because what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to plant a seed in all of our collective minds about how we can all do this better as a group and how I can help us achieve success there. So I love the questions that I don't know the answers to yet, because it tells me that it's important for you running your business.
Maybe early to ask this, Matt, but do you have a perspective on how much tariffs have impacted your clients in terms of percentage of registration? So if somebody's now, their cost of goods went up 115%, do you have a perspective on how that's impacting registration?
That's a fascinating question. I think that's pretty advanced causal inference. So I don't have a direct answer for it now, but it is something I would like to understand.
Hold on, Matt, maybe a couple questions. Thanks, Matt. Two-part question. Do you have a sense for organizers and directors on the platform, percentage of what are for-profit, let's say LLCs, and then nonprofit organizers? And then the second part, if they've been on for more than 12 months, or they're an ongoing director, the average number of events that they host per year, is it 1 point something, or are they hosting multiple events throughout the calendar year?
Great questions. Percent nonprofit versus not. That's not something I know off the top of my head, but our back end is categorized that way, so I could know it because we have business codes within there for like accounting purposes. But I don't know it off the top of my head. Second question I think is pretty interesting because I think what you're kind of getting at is like if you imagine RDs by cohort, where your cohort might be the how long you've been running your business, when you started, or something like that. And I think what you're asking is how many events are they hosting kind of each year into their tenure as an RD? Is that kind of right?
Yeah, just is it a side project? They just host this one annual maybe fundraiser for their group, or are they actively in the business of being race directors and doing this as a full-time thing?
It sounds like he's more inquiring about the number of events per business to see if it's more of a, this organization is doing it as a full-time gig or, full operation versus just hosting one event per year or something like that.
That's a really interesting question. Off the top of my head, what I can say is that the shape of the distribution looks a lot like that 10K lead time distribution, where you have on the left, you have a small number of RDs who host a very large number of events and have a large number of participants. And then there's an extremely heavy, long right tail of smaller RDs who host a smaller number of events with less people. So I think like by and large, if you just think of individual people running events, what does that makeup look like? It's almost certainly the smaller organizations that make up the bulk of those people, but the bulk of the registrations and events are sort of within that smaller set of people with larger organizations that run big operations, right? But I think I like your question because it's like for me, that would be diagnostic of like who is trying to set themselves up to run a larger organization versus who's supporting it on kind of a different basis because their needs might be different, right? Their needs and expectations are probably a little bit different.
Hi, would you be able to pull information on whether events that sell out and sell out quickly are charging more for the same distance than events that don't sell out? So are they able to charge a premium for selling out?
Fascinating question. Not sure, but that's something that could be known because we do have event capacity in the system.
One question I have, I'm a business owner who, I have a private practice, so the data that I have in my electronic health record for the private practice for mental health records, I own that data using a separate platform. So when I think about the running side of my business, does ultrasign up own that data, or do I own the data for my races on ultrasign up?
That's a fascinating question about our terms of use that I'd have to dig into a little bit more.
Well, the second part of that is if I don't own the data and the ultrasign up owns the data, then theoretically, could they be giving my data to larger race organizers or bigger businesses?
Ooh,
Smaller things, if I don't own that data, how is my data protected from being violated by people who have more money in the industry?
that's a really good question. It sounds like what I should do is help provide some documentation about that. But what I can say is that I don't I don't pass data around in that way. I'm sharing it here in sort of general purpose sense for benefit of this audience, but I don't go behind people's backs to share data for their own gain kind of thing.
Okay, I think in the spirit of making sure we get to the ethnicity section of this, we're going to go ahead and move forward.
That's good. Two quick questions. So what percentage of our registrants are female in 2025?
It's a mix.
Okay. It's actually I think I did this wrong. It's 42%. I wrote the number in wrong on the slide. But here's that distribution and breakdown year to year. So here's 2024 versus 2025. Hasn't really changed a whole lot. But if we look back to 2020, we see that the non-binary category is continuing to grow as it's become available on the platform. And then sort of an interesting question. So what distance do we think is the most balanced in terms of gender?
C, they're saying C.
Okay, that's a good guess. I was actually surprised by this one. It's that less than 7 hours category. And then here's the full distribution by distance categories. So here's less than 7 hours. So I was thinking balanced in terms of what's kind of the closest to 50-50 across those categories. Less than 10 miles is actually pretty similar. And then I always think this is interesting when I look at our data, where as the distance of the race is increasing, gets a little bit more men overall. I'm not totally sure why that is. I don't have any deep research on it. I just think it's interesting. It's sort of not true in the timed category, though, interestingly. It's a little bit more balanced overall.
Okay, I think we're good to move forward.
Okay, now I love this question. So in terms of age, what do we think Ultra Sign Up participants are? Are they 41? Are they 41? Are they 41? Or are they 41? It's always 41. It doesn't change. Like it's like impervious year to year. Here it is. They're all 41. Doesn't matter when you're looking. Shaded, here's the percentiles. So ranging from about 35 to 50-ish. It's pretty much flat. Doesn't really change. I'm 37, so I expect great things in 4 years. And then there's sort of visually arresting thing of all the distributions by distance category. Actually pretty similar overall, though. I always think this is interesting where if you look at the 70 plus crowd in particular, they kind of dominate in this 25 to 72 hour category, which I think is really interesting. Okay, we're over time here. So last question, race, ethnicity. I was asked about this. And we really don't have much data on it. So like I said, I know this came up last year. So in 2024, the same question came up. We have data for 2 events. Again, it's something that race directors can do. They could put a question into the registration flow. And so I guess I would ask the group, like, is this something that we would like to know? Do we find it important or?
I have a question. Why doesn't Ultra Sign Up just do it? Like why does it, because I agree, like I could add it as a question, but I have other questions in there, or I don't have any questions at all. And like when they're selecting their gender, why isn't it just standard for Ultra Sign Up to make an option to have non-binary people included, and 2, to have the ethnicity as something that is already built into Ultra Sign Up that doesn't make more work for the race directors?
I think that's a good question. And I think personally, that's the way that it scales, right? Is you kind of build it in standard, like in a profile thing, and you select it. I think that's something that we can talk about with our product team and see if it's something we'd like to build in. Because I agree where if it's sort of needed, you don't want it to be, subject to the bottlenecks of adoption, right? Kind of better to just have it in there and then decide what to do with it. So if that's something that we'd like.
A tough question to ask, Matt. Jay and David will be here the next 2 days, so I think this is more of a conversation for Jay and David. Matt's the statistician, not the captain of the ship, so to speak.
Well, I got a question. So, and I know
We have one question, Matt.
Yeah, it's going to be facetious. So, since you're the data guy, what's the trend on diversity?
Do you know the
So
trend
what's
of diversity in the sport?
when we're talking about diversity, what are we talking about? Gender diversity?
No, ethnic diversity.
Oh, ethnic diversity. Again, I don't have the data on it, so it's hard for me to say. Like, I think my My hesitation is that if I only have data from 2 events, that's not necessarily going to generalize across the industry. Um, Likewise, I've seen some survey data that is sort of from a limited sample, which makes me question its generalizability as well. And so it's something I don't really feel comfortable answering until I have data that I feel is robust to answer the question.
And I guess the only reason I asked that question is because I knew your answer was going to be that. So we keep talking about, and Terry, we talked about it before, we keep talking about trying to include diversity in the sport, but if you don't have metrics that measure where you are, it's very subjective. It's, you know, it's subjective. I can go to, I'm be honest, if I have to go to a registrant's website to see your event, I don't see other people of color, I might not come. And you own that. You dictate what's there. So in the case what Matt's talking about, the metrics, I just think that you know, if it really matters, then there should be a metric. We shouldn't wait to see what race roster one sign up. Maybe ultrasound is the lead, everyone else is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good conversation.
I'll second that. We started asking the questions during registration. I feel like it was suggested by somebody last year, so I went and did it, but is it irritating to set that up in the back end? Yes, it is. But if you dedicate an hour of your time to set it up for all of your events, the data is incredibly valuable, and it's helped me with just knowing. Like you can look at the crowd and say like, okay, maybe there's X amount, but now I know concretely, how much what we're averaging over the course of the year, and that's been really valuable. So I encourage everybody like take the time, it's an hour to spend.
Well, I asked a question, what would be the value of knowing what ethnicity your racers are? And I understand what he's saying. You see, but isn't that kind of racist a little bit in itself?
No.
I was saying that you're not going to go do a race because there's not another person of color there.
I can answer.
I think you should feel comfortable going to the race because you want to do the race.
That would be nice.
But I don't think it should be based on whether or not somebody, I mean,
I think so too.
I think as a person of color, it does make me feel more comfortable to approach an event. I don't think that it's going to be something for the race directors.
Are the races and the race directors doing something that's causing people of color or not to or not to, or is it just the fact of?
I think it's also an educational piece of, okay, like Kim now has that data. So if she wants her events to be more inclusive of people of all ethnicities, if that is a priority for her, now she has the data where she can do outreach to different organizations to try to encourage more people of color, more people of diverse background to attend her events because she knows exactly how that breakdown is looking for her events. So I think it's more of like education is your power if you want to access that.
I also think to challenge the perspective, what value does it bring to a race director or race? It might not. The value might be for the runners.
I feel like that should be on the runner. I mean, it's like I've gone to rap concerts, and I'm definitely the minority there, but I don't choose to go because I feel comfortable if there's going to be another white person there. I go because I like the music or I like the environment, or I like the crowd, and it's people in general. Not, I mean, I feel like that's kind of.
I had more of a comment for Matt instead of responding to this, but I just wanted to say to Matt, as a runner, seeing those statistics would inspire or give comfort or motivation to the runner, the registrator, the person registering.
And it's not always just the race; it's the location, right? There are locations in this country that I don't think they can. So
I understand everything you're saying, but it helped me because
I know other people are willing to go there. You know, and sometimes we're in austere environment. We talk about Southern Utah. There's a lot of races where you gotta pitch a tent. You know, that may not be there. So we want to see if others might be there. And going back to Sophia's point, it's a level of comfort. And you know, knowing that okay, before and after the race, I may be okay.
And at the end of the day, as a race director, it's how much you value inclusion and how much you value what you want your participants to feel, because it can be an emotional experience, and a lot of times that's what our races bring environment, they might be getting more demographics.
What about, I feel comfortable with you.
Mhm.
In this room. I think it's a exclusivity thing, it's more of, it's a good person or a bad person, it's a bad area or a good area, and I get in some situations, there are people that are not good, you know,
I have a
and so
slightly
I
different
understand that, but I
perspective for
think
you.
you have to make those choices, because you're probably not gonna change all those people in that area, if that's the problem. I'm not.
So I have something to share with you all. I'm the co-founder of a BIPOC center that is Black, Indigenous, People of Color trail group that in the last 90 days has grown from 6 people to 125 active members. Sit with that. This data matters. It goes beyond just feeling comfortable, feeling included, all of that. In a single race, in 2 weeks, and I can show receipts, we went from 0 runners for a race to 33 fully paid participants. All of us, every single one was people of color, not in this data. That's why it matters. Respectfully, when it might feel like, well, I feel comfortable coming to something because blah, 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 or maybe you're on the other side of that thinking, this really makes me sad that there's no data for these people. You know what it makes me? Invisible. So, with that being said, this data matters because not only is it the right thing, but there's also money there, because I know that's what you're also leading here. And we are really, really excited about spending that money. But I'm not going to go spend it where I don't matter. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. I think that's a great way to wrap this up. So thank you for speaking up and providing that. And thank you, Matt, for sharing all the data. I'm sure we'll have more in-depth conversations about this as the week goes on. But I really appreciate the open dialogue. Anything else, Matt, that you have for the group?
Hang on, let me give you my email address on screen just in case. I just have to find my share screen button again.
Matt, can you button all of this up into a nice info deck and send it to Terry, where Terry can send us all the information, all the questions that they ask, and get
Okay.
because this is super helpful for us to run a business. Makes
Sure.
us change what we're doing to be better. So if you could put this into something that we could all use, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that together and email Terry. Otherwise, my email's up on screen here if you want to reach out to me. But I think just my last comment, just to buttress the conversation that was just having, is that it's really hard to characterize something that's changing, if anything is a problem, if anything is an opportunity, if you don't have numbers to attach to it, right? It makes it really hard to say for sure, here's what the situation is and here's where it's going, right? If you don't have that, it's really hard to do that in the first place. But thank you for your time, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Good to see you.